spent 4 hours preparing a carefully planned dinner. When my husband came home, he barely glanced at it and told me to make steak for him right then and there. I locked him up and poured his blood into a wine glass for my in-laws to drink. They drank it while criticizing me. "Your husband doesn't like this. Stop making all these fancy dishes." I smiled. He would never have the chance again. When Michael Morrow came home, I had just finished washing all the ingredients. Without raising his eyes, he glanced at the macaroni and cheese on the table and took off his coat. "Go and make me a steak. Let's eat the paz I'm about to." The rest of my words were cut off by a slap to my face. I covered my face and sat on the ground, while my in-laws sat munching on snacks and looked at me like I was the punchline of a joke. A day at work is tiring enough. Who has time to listen to your nonsense? Hurry up. With that, Michael went into the bedroom. When I brought the noodles into the bedroom, he was lying on the bed, scrolling through videos, his face full of impatience. "I should just go eat outside. What are you trying to be now? If there's a next time, you..." I smiled coldly. "You won't get another chance." Before he could say another word, I pressed a cloth soaked in ether over his mouth. His pupils dilated, and seconds later, he passed out. The sound of my in-laws cracking sunflower seeds and mocking me kept drifting into my ears. They scolded me without ever thinking to avoid doing so in front of me. I pulled out the bedside drawer, put on medical gloves, took out the prepared rope, and tied Michael up thoroughly. Then, I sealed his mouth with tape, wrapping several layers around his head to prevent him from pushing the tape off with his tongue. I took out a scalpel and slashed his arm viciously, catching all the blood in an empty plate that was supposed to beef. From the start, I never intended for Michael to finish this meal alive. The bright red blood was particularly glaring under the dim light. I ran my hand over Michael's nose and whispered softly, "You forced me to do this." After filling the bowl, I wrapped his arm tightly with gauze. Pour the blood into a fine red wine bottle. As expected, most of the meat slices had been eaten, leaving the table in a mess. I calmly dropped the blood blocks into the pot and managed a smile. "Dad, Mom, try the wine we bought today. It's very expensive and a top brand." My mother-in-law wiped the oil from her mouth and softened her tone. "Did he sleep?" I nodded. "The pressure at work is high. He drank some alcohol outside, ate a few bites of noodles, and fell asleep. Since Michael doesn't like eating, you should prepare less fancy stuff. We wouldn't come here if it wasn't for the effort you've put in. Since you married into our family, you should listen to us." I poured the dark red wine into my parents' glasses and said, "Parents, please have some. It's specially prepared for you." Halfway through the meal, a sound of something breaking came from the bedroom. My mother-in-law got up anxiously to go into the room, and I broke out in a cold sweat, my hand holding the chopsticks trembling. The sounds from the bedroom grew louder, and my father-in-law stopped eating, looking at me with puzzlement in his eyes. I hadn't controlled the force well the first time, and he woke up earlier than expected, but I remained outwardly calm and stopped my mother-in-law. "Mom, I'll go. You know how Michael likes his sleep undisturbed." Opening the door, my heart raced, as Michael had fallen off the bed and was inching towards the door, looking like a large slug. I couldn't help but laugh. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and blood seeped through the bandages on his arm. He glared at me as if he would slap me across the face and call me a slut in the next moment. I pressed the scalpel against his neck, and his pupils widened. Tears rolled down the corner of his eye. I stroked his hair and said with a smile, "If you make any more noise to disturb me and your parents during dinner, this knife will go into your throat first, then into your parents' throats." "Did you hear that?" He made muffled noises and nodded frantically. I noticed a strange smell, and when I looked back, I realized he had urinated out of fear. Then, I tied him to the radiator in the room. If he struggled too much, he would suffocate. I adjusted my smile and walked out, explaining to my in-laws enthusiastically, "Michael was half asleep and broke a cup. I just cleaned it up, no need to worry." Suddenly, my father-in-law stared intently at my collar and asked, "Why is there blood on your clothes? You didn't have it when you went in. Is something wrong with Michael?" The frying pan made a sizzling sound, which was particularly noticeable in the quiet living room, and the grandfather was about to get up from his chair to go to the bedroom to see Michael. After all, although Michael is a jerk, he never goes to bed early when my parents are around. I pricked my hand when I was picking up the broken pieces. "See for yourself." I showed my hand to my father-in-law, whose expression changed from nodding to one of terror, as if remembering something, and he urged my mother-in-law to go home. Facing my mother-in-law's questioning, he seemed to want to say something but didn't dare to. Before they left, he gave the bedroom a long, hard look. After I cleared the trash from the table, the doorbell rang suddenly. Opening the door, I saw 2 police officers standing there, with my in-laws behind them. I sneered, "Old foxes. You really did find out."